Good evening and welcome to Simple Scotch Reviews. Today we have another impromptu review. I had a sample I wanted to try, so I figured I'd do a quick impromptu rather than messing around with the camera and all that. Here we have Bowmore 15 Darkest. It's the sherry cask finished Bowmore. I believe the 18 also has some sherry cask elements, but the 15 is the only one that's noted as sherry cask finished. Just to start things off, my experience with Bowmore up until this point had only been the 12 year. 12 year was one I had early on, and it got my curiosity going with smoke and Scotch. It was just for me at the time, it was more significant smoke, but it's a subtly smoky whiskey that really just surprised me because I was super new to Scotch and it was just an entirely new flavor and a drink to me. So I did have a soft spot for Bowmore 12. I'm not a huge fan. As I go back, I need to do a review of that one sometime. Let's get into it here. So it's a 15-year-old single malt Scotch whiskey bottled at 43%. Bowmore is an Islay whiskey. It is an Oloroso sherry finish. There are several sherry finished smoky Islay whiskeys out there. Another one that comes to mind is the Lagavulin Distiller's Edition. That Lagavulin Distiller's Edition is Pedro Jimenez cask finished rather than sherry, or Oloroso sherry. It's still sherry, it's just a different type of sherry. Alright, so right away on the nose, you get the Islay peat. So what I'll say though with this whiskey is this is one of the few whiskeys that the palate is significantly better than the nose. So let me elaborate. Sometimes the nose and palate are different. Sometimes both are good, they're just different. Sometimes the palate is a big letdown from what you expect from the nose. And then for me, in the rare occurrence, the palate's much better than the nose. Maybe to those who have tried many, many more whiskeys, you'll say this is more common, but for me, it's an outlier just from the standpoint there are very few that I've tried that the palate was great and the nose just was a letdown. Just by nosing this one, I was like, I don't know what to expect. So on the nose, I get the peat, smoky qualities. So I get a strong medicinal, like iodine type quality. Just that medicinally peat note. I also get some barbecue smoke, like when you're smoking meat, some more of that aromatic smoke rather than like just the peaty note. So going with that, there's a sweetness, and I think that may be why I'm perceiving that barbecue smoke sweetness. So like when you're smoking, recently smoked with cherry wood, so that has some sweeter smoky notes, and there's a subtle sweetness in the background from that Oloroso sherry cask, so that could be what's leading me to perceive that. So I get the smoke, the peaty medicinal quality, the barbecue smoke note. And in the background, there's some faint fruitiness that's flirting with the nose, but I mean, I'm getting no specific fruit notes because it's buried behind all the rest. It'd be interesting to know if this was a first fill sherry or what the deal was. Be interesting to see this whiskey as sherry matured, just because then with that Oloroso cask, I feel like it could better punch against the smoky qualities. But either way, let's get on with the review. No distinct fruit notes. Like I can't pinpoint what fruit I'm getting there. Also to note on the nose, this is a whiskey that gets better in the glass the longer it's in the glass. So give it some time in the glass. Definitely opens up well. So right away on the palate, it's sweet. I do get that nondescript fruit note. The palate's better than the nose, but what I'll say is that fruit note, there's still a sweet fruit note, but again, I can't even pick it apart because it's subtle and it's at the same time as all these other Islay smoke notes. So if you're wondering what level of peat is in here, because I know some people are far more sensitive to peat than others, but this is definitely above your Oban levels of peat. Personally, I almost would say that this peat is more than your standard, or less than your standard Talisker, or even with Talisker. Other people might feel differently, but just to give an idea, it's definitely below Lagavulin, below Laphroaig, below Ardbeg. So yeah, if that gives you an idea where things are at, it's a more subtle smoke, but it's still definitely a main feature. It's not your open wisp of smoke in the background. It's definitely a center part of this whiskey. So just to elaborate on the palate, you get that sweetness and fruit hits the palate immediately, but quickly followed up by the smoke notes. I will note that I get the barbecue smoke note, that fruitwood smoke note. I do get a tiny hint of that earthy peat, but I don't get a medicinal flavor. There are other scotches I definitely get that medicinal flavor from the peat, but I got it strong in the nose and it was completely absent from the palate. Part of the reason I'm saying the palate is far better than the nose, I'm not a fan of that note. Don't get it on the palate. So the finish lingers, and as it lingers, I think because the smoke gets more subtle as the finish lingers, some of the fruit can show through, maybe an apple-like note. Some orchard fruit there, but again, it's so hard because that fruit note's so subtle behind the smoke for me. Overall, I think it's definitely a good try whiskey, especially if you like some of the peaty whiskeys, but you don't like the heavy peat. Definitely think this could be one for you. I think it's a great introduction to Islay. For if you want to dip your toes into the peaty whiskeys. I know a lot of people recommend Bowmore 12. I would personally, for someone moving over, especially if you're moving over from sherry whiskey, I think Bowmore 15 is a better move over. I'm not overly impressed with the 12, so 15 I think is a good introduction to Islay peat without jumping into your Ardbeg, Laphroaig, Lagavulin territory. So overall, it's a good whiskey. I definitely recommend trying it, even if you've had Bowmore 12 and weren't impressed. It's worth trying, even if you weren't impressed with the 12. I personally was glad to get this sample because I was in that category of trying Bowmore 12 and being like, I'm not spending more money on another Bowmore bottle before I can try it first. But this one definitely made me rethink my stance on trying another Bowmore. I know there's some NAS and the 18-year-old is available near here, so I may at some point try that 18-year-old out. It's a good whiskey. It's interesting, definitely, and so I'd recommend the try. I don't know if I'd go as far as saying I want to keep one on hand necessarily. There's so many whiskeys out there that's a hard category to fit in when you can't keep everything in the world on hand, but I could definitely see myself, if I get in that mood for some smoky whiskey, popping over to this Bowmore 15 and picking one up. Hope this review helps, and like, subscribe, check out the channel, tons of other reviews, more coming up later, and hopefully some non-impromptu ones. I just got a handful of samples and couldn't wait. So let's all enjoy our scotch and check out the channel and check out more reviews, and there will be definitely more coming soon. Enjoy your whiskey, and thanks for watching.